Hi everyone, today we're going to be looking at section 4 from Infra. Our learning objectives for today's lesson are to gain knowledge of the choreographic content and production features of section 4. Your extra challenge is to begin to link the choreographic intention, the choreographic approach, and the stimulus to section 4, and your literacy focus is to use dance-specific terminology throughout the lesson when discussing the choreographic content and production features. For our starter task, you now need to watch section 4 of Infra. Whilst watching the clip of the section, I want you to note down what you see. This could be, for example, the staging or the aural setting. Note down as many points as you can, as this will help you throughout the lesson. As we have now watched the clip of Infra, I want you to get out or download the section 4 booklet. It should have 5 pages, which consist of the aural setting, the lighting, the staging, the costume, and the choreographic content, which we will be looking at today. Using the notes that you wrote down in your starter task, I want you to spend 3 minutes putting them on the correct pages. We are going to start by looking at the staging of section 4. Using the image, I want you to label and describe the set, staging, and performance environment. Remember to think about the type, the location, the colours, the shape, and the backdrop of the performance space. You have 3 minutes. Section 4 is performed on an empty stage, and there is a steady flow of 2 or 3 digital characters walking across the screen at different speeds and in both directions. At the bottom of the page, there should be a box which asks you to highlight if the performance environment suggests a certain aspect. I want you to go through and highlight any of the phrases that you think the staging suggests about the piece. For example, you could highlight the phrase links to stimulus, as it presents a portrait of life beneath the surface of the city shown through the business attire figures. You have 2 minutes. We should now have lots of different ideas for the staging of Section 4. Make sure you have written down and highlighted each of the aspects that I have discussed, as well as all of your own ideas. We are now going to move on and look at the lighting of Section 4. Using the images, label and describe the lighting. Remember to think about the colours, the direction, the shape, the effect, the intensity, and any shadows that the lighting creates. You have 3 minutes. In Section 4, the green light from the previous duet disappears and 6 evenly spaced rectangular blocks of white light appear in a horizontal line across the downstage area. The area around each block is black, and at the end of the section, the 6 blocks of light fade out as the dancers move upstage. Why do you think the stage is lit with white rectangular blocks of light? Why do you think the rest of the stage is in darkness? Now, go through and highlight if the lighting suggests a certain aspect about the piece. For example, you could highlight the phrase, highlights key areas of the performing space, as the rectangular blocks define the space and suggest windows of a train or a room. You have 2 minutes. Next, we are going to look at the aural setting in Section 4. I want you to create a mind map to describe the aural setting and the accompaniment. Your extension task is to analyse how the aural setting is used effectively. Remember to think about the instruments, the time signature, the style, the volume, the speed, the music-dance relationships, any silence, and if you can hear any of the dancers' movements. This section starts with the found sounds of a shortwave radio, beeps, and on the cue of a loud, distorted vocal announcement, the live string instruments begin to play. The live string music is layered and rich with a fast pulse. The music ends abruptly with the movement. Now, go through and highlight if the aural setting and accompaniment suggest a certain aspect about the piece. Think about how this section links the choreographic intention and stimulus. You also need to look at the music-dance relationships of this section and highlight the correct term. Are the music and dance in direct correlation, or do they mutually exist or disassociate with one another? You have 2 minutes. We are now going to look at the choreographic content of section 4. First, I want you to describe key motifs from this section referring to the action, space, dynamics, and relationships. Second, I want you to move on to naming any structuring devices and form within this section. Thirdly, I want you to move on to the choreographic devices box, naming any of the devices and where they are visible within section 4. Write down as many examples as you can. For the movement content, the section starts with a digital display of people walking across the screen above the stage. A male dancer walks on from stage left, and 6 rectangular blocks of light appear in a line. A female dancer meets the male dancer appearing from upstage. On a clear sudden music change, they dance a tight, fast, and articulate contact duet in the 3rd block of light. 2 more couples walk into the 2nd and 5th block of light. All 3 couples perform the same duet in unison. For structuring devices and form, an example is episodic, as Infra follows an episodic structure. This section of the work slowly builds, creating an eerie mood and sense of anticipation. For choreographic devices, the section uses clear climax. This section starts with the digital display of people walking across the screen projected above the stage. The climax in this section is when the 6 male and female duets are seen performing within the 6 blocks of projected light. All duets perform different yet complementary movements. They sometimes meet in unison with other duets before breaking off into their own movement again. The squares of light look like windows, and as the audience, we almost feel as though we are looking inside the privacy of their relationships. Relationships are seen in counterpoint, complement and contrast, contact, action and reaction. The mood created is argumentative, manipulative, and frantic. It also links with the idea of what goes on behind closed doors. Your next task is to highlight if the choreographic content suggests a certain aspect about the piece. For example, you could highlight the phrase, enhances highlight or climax, as all 12 dancers are on the stage for the climax with traditional ballet partnering. You have 2 minutes. We are now going to move on and look at the costume of section 4. Using the images, label and describe the costume. Remember to think about the colours, the shape, the texture, the style, the size, and the material. Your extension task is to describe the dancers' physiques as well as the costumes. You have 3 minutes. In this section, there is a combination of black, white, nude, and grey tops, trousers, skirts, and shorts. The men wear flesh-coloured ballet shoes and the women wear flesh-coloured point shoes. Why do you think McGregor chose to have similar costumes with a variation in colour? Think about the choreographic intention and stimulus. Now, go through and highlight if the costume suggests a certain aspect about the piece. For example, you could highlight the phrase support genre as the ballet shoes show the style of dance. You could also highlight the phrase enhances the flow of action as the point shoes elongate or distort the line of the leg and add sharper and faster dynamics to the dancer's footwork. You have 2 minutes. Well done for today's work. We have looked at the aural setting, the lighting, the staging, the costume, and the choreographic content of Section 4 from Infra. For your homework, you now need to download and complete the homework table. This homework table asks you to write down how the lighting, for example, supports the contributions of the piece. The contributions could refer to the choreographic intention, the stimulus, or the choreographic approach. You are then required to give your personal interpretation of the lighting and then how the lighting has an effect on the audience.